watching the #1 YouTube live stream, hosted by David Osler, Aaron J. Anderson. Get the latest in photography news, gear talk, tips and tutorials. We are here. We are live behind the photo. Learn, grow, share.
Well, g'day Aaron, how are you today?
I am doing super amazing. I need to pause this audio. Okay, that's done.
So welcome everyone.
Okay. Hey everybody, where's my chat? Got to find my chat.
Yeah, we've had a couple of weeks where we just couldn't get on together, but we thought, well, we're definitely popping on this week, so it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, I know. Let me say, well, first of all, the first week I was really sick. I remember the last show we did, your wife was just getting sick,
Yes.
and then that following week I got real sick for like 5 days. I haven't been sick like that in years and years and years, like many years, so that was really weird that I got that sick, and so we couldn't do the show. And then the next week I felt better, I think, right? And you had a photo shoot or something.
Yeah, I had
and
a
here we are
shoot.
today.
I couldn't get out of it. Yeah, well, Kerry got sick as well, and she never ever gets sick either. And it took her 2 weeks to get over that, but really bad cough she had. So she's much better now. When you are heading off to New York, it must be in the next couple of days, eh?
Yeah, next couple of days I'll be hitting up New York, and then going to the, Photo Plus.
Yep.
Going to walk around there. Probably just go for 1 day, walk around for a few hours, check the place out, because we do have other business to attend to, but it's kind of cool that it's perfect timing for us to be there and have Photo Plus to check out while I'm there, so that's kind of cool.
So are you also going to the Sony sort of little expo they're running as well?
I don't know. I don't know how to get in. I don't know if you need tickets in advance. I didn't really have time to look into that. So if you need something like that, then probably not, unless it's just walk in. I'm not sure. Does anybody know? Leave some
Yeah, they may be able to let us know
anybody...
in the chat if you have to buy tickets or not. I like Gary said, special brew coffee. I am going to start drinking the special brew coffee probably from next week because it is warming up.
Oh, that's true. It starts getting
it's
warmed
warming
up
up
over there.
now.
It's getting chilly.
Yeah.
It's getting freezing here in Puerto Rico.
I've got the funny thing is too, I'm doing a wedding I thought it was last week, but it's actually this Saturday where I'm just a videographer, Aaron. So for the first time ever, I'm doing a wedding where I am the videographer, not the photographer. So it's going to be really unusual for me.
Well, that's, I started photography when I was 14. Then 10 years ago went into video heavily. That's all I did. And then went into photography. So yeah, it's weird when you do one predominantly and then switch. It's just like, ooh, this is weird. So I'm anxious to see how you like it. Of course, you do the fusion thing, photography and video. But I'm anxious to see if you think it's just easier, of course, just to worry about one thing because you're probably going to get more video shots. Maybe you have more time to set up things or something. I don't know, but I'm interested to maybe on our next show,
I think
or
it'll
maybe
be
you'll do
easier.
a video about it.
I think it'll be easier only because I'm not doing the photography. The other thing too is it's only 4 hours, so it's I'm just going to be turning up for the ceremony and then doing some of the formal shots afterwards, and then just the entrance into the reception. And cutting the cake and the first dance, and then we'll leave. So it's only a 4-hour gig, which is really nice as well. But it's going to be funny watching another photographer. It's going to be a bit weird standing sort of from there watching someone else. Now, she's only young, so hopefully she's not going to be intimidated. I hope not anyway, because she may know who I am. I don't know, because she's also a local photographer from this area, so I'm sure she probably knows me. But it should be interesting to see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. Are you going to use any gear that you typically don't use when you're doing your fusion, and what camera are you going to be using?
Well, I'm going to have Kerry assisting me, so I'll probably use the A9 and the A7 III. I'll have those on separate cameras, and then I'll use the A6400 on a tripod to record the wedding. That's got the no time limit, so I thought I'd record that and just let that run on a big tripod. And I'll probably use the gimbal as well. I will use gimbals. I'll use 2 gimbals. And a drone. I want to do some drone footage because it's sort of a lovely location where they're going to get married.
Cool.
So it should be fun. So the pressure's
really cool.
off me a little bit because I don't have to be thinking about the photography side of stuff and the video side of stuff. I can just concentrate on one thing. I only did it. I was going to say I only did it because I haven't got a wedding booking on that day, and they asked me, and I said, well, I'm not booked, so I'll do it.
I had a question. First of all, David, I'm going to be at Photo Plus on the 26th. So if you're going to be there, hit me up with a message on Facebook or whatever, and let me know if you're going to be there, and I'll look for you. David, are you going to? What was I going to say? Are you going to? I don't remember what I was going to say now.
No, it doesn't matter.
You're talking about the drone. Are you going to do a video telling us your experience?
Well, I may. I don't know.
Video?
Well, I might. I'm not sure yet. I'm doing a doc edit, so it's not going to be like a highlight reel. This one, it's actually just going to be a doc edit, like as it actually happens. That's the costing that I gave her. I gave her the option of having a highlight reel plus a doc edit, or just the doc edit. So she wanted the doc edit, so it'll be a longer video. But basically, it's just going to be like it's shot. So, I mean, I will still have microphones. I'll still, mic up the celebrant and the groom and things like that. So I'll be doing all that sort of stuff. But
here's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Are you going to? I think maybe you just answered that, and maybe I didn't get it quite right. Are you going to do, as a videographer? A lot of times when I do photography at weddings, I'm the one who's setting up, the posing and all that, and the videographer is just kind of filming that. So they're kind of, well, not stealing the shot, but they're kind of using the shots that I set up. Are you going to be doing the same, or are you going to take them and then do your own setups for video?
Well, I might. I'll see the issue is I'll have to see how the photographer that they've got there is, like I said, she's only young, and I think she's very experienced. So I don't want to intimidate her. So I'll probably see. I'm going to suss out how good she does things. If she seems like she's in control and she can do things good enough, I'll probably just sit in the background and film what she's doing. Yeah. If I think it's not enough, then I might just give some suggestions and just say, oh, would you mind doing this? Because I usually know what I like to do, so I've got to try and step back because I'm usually in total control. So it's going to be interesting to see how I go like that. But I'm sort of thinking that they've mostly hired her as the photographer, and I'm going to try and just sort of sit in the background and sort of try and film from her. If she's, like I said, I don't know what her work's like because I've looked at it and I'm not sure how she'll be yet. So I'll just have to see how I go. But I've got to make sure too that I'm happy with what I get as well. So I may, if I think she hasn't done enough, I might just then sort of say, well, look, would you mind doing this? Walk towards me or walk away and stuff like that. We've got a couple of hours, so we've got a fair bit of time to shoot. So we should have ample time. And it's on a golf course, and we'll be hiring golf carts and flying around with the golf carts and stuff. So it's all going to be fun.
That sounds really good for that drone footage, so that'll be really neat.
So let's see who's here anyway. Let's just see. Kebs is also here. The Tamron lenses are out today. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Tamron lenses on Friday, Kebs. We sort of keep this show... We often do talk about Sony, and there'll be some parts today where we talk about Sony as well, but we keep this show sort of more open to general photography. But I'll definitely be talking about the Tamron lenses definitely on Friday. Jamie's saying howdy all. LT is also saying howdy all.
Hello.
David Thomas is here as well. Gary Stevens is here. Special brew coffee soon. It's definitely warming up now, so I think we're 30-odd degrees by tomorrow. Jamie's saying multi, yep. Mick's saying great weather for a cold multi coffee. Donald's saying hello from Texas. Langston's in here as well. Robert's saying Langston. Hi from California. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit in LA today. That's hot, isn't it, when you consider they're starting to almost get out of summer. They've got bad fires, I saw in LA.
And also, Donnell is from Texas. Hopefully you're okay with the storms I heard going over there.
Yeah, Gerald contacted me the other day to say about how bad the storms were. Yeah. Really bad. They had some tornadoes, some really bad tornadoes. John says, I sell prints all the time. I print them at home. I'm going to talk about that as one of the stories today because it's interesting because I went to a really good workshop the other day and I thought I'd talk about that.
Oh, yes.
Langston says, make sure you do the stereotypical things like getting in the photographer's way. That's what Langston said. I love it, Langston. I know. I can get a big boom microphone and put that in the way of the photographer when they're cutting the cake, and I've had that happen to me. It's terrible.
I got pretty lucky, working with videographers. I've never had too many issues, thankfully.
So David said there is a sign up for the Sony event, Aaron.
Did I miss it then? Because then I'm not going.
Well, it's probably still on, I would say. Langston said, "What lighting will you use?" I don't think I'll be using any Langston, because it's during the day. I think the wedding starts around about 3 o'clock. I think we're showing up at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then I'm doing 4 hours from there. So when they come into the reception, it's an outdoor reception, so it'll still be sunlight. It'll still be light at that time. So I'm not going to need any lighting in this at all. I'm just going to do everything sunlight, so, natural light. So that's one really good advantage. If I was doing it...
Hey, David, when do we start the show? Sorry, did we miss it, or...
do you mean...
We still got minutes.
No, it's started. It hasn't started yet. Okay. Do you mean the time?
Yeah, we have the pre-show.
No, well, we're sort of pre-show. We're still on pre-show at the moment.
Okay,
so
okay.
Just put the time down from when the show starts, Aaron. When we officially start, because I'll say that then.
Got it.
What else have we got? Photomix also saying, "Oh wow, this show is still a thing." Yes, it certainly is. We only missed 2 weeks, Photomix.
I was sick the first week, and then he had a photo shoot the next week, and now here we are this week. So yeah, but hey, I enjoyed watching your shows when we were down, so that was kind of cool.
Bassam's also saying hello. Langston's also saying he's alive as well. Walter's saying howdy from Santa Cruz. And
Simon from England.
Yeah, Donald's is saying, "I avoided the tornadoes, but several schools were damaged." That's no good at all.
I'm glad you didn't get in the mess.
All right, so if you want to say now, start the show, Aaron. If you put that down to start, we'll go on to the first... I'll just say anyway. We'll just sort of say start it, and then I'll come back. So,
all right.
So we're basically starting the show now, guys. So that was just a bit of a pre-show. Welcome, everyone. We have missed 2 weeks, but we're back now. Hopefully we won't miss many more, but just sometimes things like that happen. It's harder when there's two of us. Sometimes if something comes up or if a shoot's on there or one of us gets sick or something else, but we are back now. We've got some interesting stories to do today. What have you been up to the last week or so, Aaron?
Well, being sick. I didn't do too much because I was sick. Other than that, just the typical... product photography that I do basically 5 days a week. That's kind of like my main thing of photography. Ever since Hurricane Maria came by and swept through Puerto Rico, I've kind of am doing predominantly, photos of jewelry and all that stuff for web pages and other advertisements and all that. So I've been doing that and being sick. So not too much excitement over here. So you sound like you're having a lot more excitement on your side,
I've
David.
been pretty busy. I've got a lot of dance stuff happening at the moment. Next weekend's a really big dance weekend for me where I shoot both Saturday and Sunday for about 8 hours each day. So that's a massive one. I've just got this too. I'm going to show you this little thing. I don't know if anyone has ever seen these before. This is called a tour box. I'm not sure if it's in focus, but let me just...
Not sure what that is.
Now, let me just switch to this camera. This is incredible, this little thing. This company contacted me a few weeks ago to see if I was interested in reviewing this little controller. But what it does, it actually... You can use it for Lightroom, you can use it for any application, and it comes up with these programmable keys, this interface, and so that you can use it for Photoshop and Lightroom. Like I used it yesterday when I was doing a wedding edit yesterday in Lightroom, and you can have keys that skip to your next photo. You can adjust your exposure with wheels, all these sort of things. I used to have one a while ago which was incredibly intensive, which had all keys that I could press, and it stopped working. They basically didn't support it anymore in the latest versions of Lightroom, so I had to stop using it. And I think that saved my Lightroom editing probably 50 to 60%. I got that fast on it, getting through it. So this seems to be that it's fairly similar. So I'm looking forward to getting... I only put this on yesterday, but I used it yesterday in Lightroom, and already I can see that it's going to save me a lot of time in how it works, because it just means you have to use your mouse and stuff like that far less, and even your keyboard or whatever, and just run it right from there. And I think it's going to be fantastic. So stay tuned for the review. They were on Kickstarter. I think they're now shipping, I think.
Cool.
But fantastic. So I've been looking at that. I've got a stack of things that I'm going to be reviewing in the coming days. I've got some really interesting one I can't talk about until I think it's released in the next 2 days, I think. Once that's released, I'll be able to discuss that because that is really interesting. Apart from that, just getting on with life, getting ready to wedding season picks up shortly, so looking forward to that as well. So, all right,
cool, man.
Let's get started into the first story. So if you want to put the first story in, Aaron, on the timeline, we're looking at this. Now, I noticed the other day that this came up sort of everywhere. I've been seeing this Luma 4. There must be an awful lot of photographers that get asked to do sponsor Lumina because I keep getting them all the time, videos. True. I think I even got asked to do it, but I think I refused. I thought, well, I don't really use it, so I'm not going to sort of promote something at this stage that I don't really use. So, but I have seen an awful lot out there, so I would say it must be a lot of sponsorship going on at the moment with Luna. But it's talking about how easy it is to replace skies. Now, I also noticed, Aaron, that this had AI built in, and I keep hearing that as well about AI for doing skin retouching and everything else. But the video was talking about how easy this does, this replacement of sky, and putting in this sort of like lunar-looking sky, the Milky Way over the top of this shot. I read an awful lot of comments talking about it, and most of the comments that I saw were people, particularly landscape shooters, were against the use of this type of app. Just before we finish, James said, how much is that contraption? I think it was about 250 Australian, James. So it's probably around $150, $160 US, I think. But stay tuned and I'll have that reviewed. But I don't know, look, occasionally if I want to make a real impact image of a bride and it was a really dull looking day and the grey sky looked terrible, I have occasionally put a sky in myself. So I'm not going to lie to you, so I have done that. But if I'd posted it online, and I wouldn't claim that it was a one-shot type of image, and this is where it can be a bit unethical, and I wanted to get your opinion, and even the people on the live chat as well, about what they think about it. But do you think it's ethical to say use AI to just drop in this background and make it seem like it's a shot you captured on the day? I noticed most people in the live chat were saying that they think as landscape shooters it's fake and it shouldn't be done. I think if you're doing it like as a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer and you wanted to make an impact image where it's not like documentary type work, it's not so bad as long as you're honest about it and, not saying, well, this is what I produced as a one shot, and then I think it's a bit of a lie. But what do you think, Aaron, on this whole thing?
Well, I'm all about post-production. I mean, I do special effects for videos and all that stuff. I love post-production with photos and everything. However, and I've done plenty of sky replacements in video and photography. And when I do any of that, I've like you just mentioned, I never claim that, hey, look at this cool shot with these beautiful skies that I took, and really I didn't. That's not even like a discussion for me to ever say that. It's if I take a shot and I need to do whatever I want with it, I will. However, the one thing I didn't like is the fact that Milky Way, because I got an app called Photo Pills, and it does a really good augmented reality of, you could put the time, the date, whatever. So if you want to get the Milky Way in a shot above a lighthouse or whatever, you can be at that lighthouse at any time of the day, at any time of the week or whatever, or year, and hold that phone up and find out when the Milky Way will be, where you want it, which saves you a lot of time instead of going out there every day and every night to find out where this Milky Way is going to go and then take the photo. So that's not really cheating. You're just going to find out. And then you have to know your skills to capture the image and all that stuff. And to be able to throw that in on a photo, I don't like that idea, because, I mean, I'm not even I don't even do photos of landscapes much, but that is a big cheat for me, because how many people are going to just so easily take any photo anywhere and then throw that up there and say, hey, look at this cool shot. Now you never know, did you really take the time, and did you really learn or understand how to take that type of shot? So I'm completely against that Milky Way thing unless you're stating it or something. I don't know, because I see so many beautiful shots of Milky Ways and I'm like, wow, the work and the timing it
Yeah.
took to get that and the research to get that and going. But now I'm just now knowing that that's there. It's kind of like, is that just like a 10-second drop in thing? So yeah, I don't like that idea. But then again, like you, if I do a beautiful shot and I'm using natural light and I'm going to blow the background out on purpose because there's not much going on anyways there, where it's like an overcast day like you said, then I'm going to put in a fake sky and I don't really care. But that just seems like you're going out there and that's that Milky Way shot and
Yeah.
it's fake. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
I mean, the
So
thing is too, when I've done it for brides, and it's like I said, their impact shot, they never notice it. They just go, "Wow, what a beautiful photo," and
Yeah,
they don't even notice that
exactly.
I've done that. But I suppose the issue is that when you're getting it, and people are say putting it in the photo groups, and they're not claiming it as being a composite. This is the thing that you have to be careful
Yeah.
about doing this. I think with art, I don't think anything should not be allowed because it's art and it's your expression
Yeah,
of what you want to do.
that's
But
how I feel.
as long as you are honest about it being a composite image and you don't state that it's, like just put it online and then put f 2.8 1/25th of a second ISO whatever, and just state it as if it's a one
Yeah.
grab shot, that can totally confuse people that are new photographers, for instance, that think,
Yeah,
wow,
they do
how on
that.
earth did they get that Milky Way shot in one shot like that, which would just be an impossibility. So there's ethical sides to it. As long as you're being honest, I think there's no issue with it. I know the landscape photographers hated it because most of them were saying they thought it shouldn't be allowed and it was wrong and all this sort of stuff because it's like a true capture of the environment at that time. Well, I see it as not being a problem as long as you have full disclosure, like some people are saying in here that, and then I noticed Sizzleman said it's no different than using auto-tune if you're a musician and things like that, that you're editing the file digitally. So I think there's no issue at all. Personally, like I said, I even do it as long as you're honest about it. Don't try and claim that it's an image you've captured in one go. Just state in the photo when you put it up, composite image of the sky in the background, and then put your exposure settings in, and then it probably isn't an issue. But, and I sort of wanted to elaborate on this, though, too, that it seems to be getting easier and easier with this software. Who knows where we'll be in another 5 years with how the AI is starting to go? Is it going to be a thing where eventually we click the camera and then the camera is going to do all this stuff for you in camera and you're going to get this beautiful image that comes out? It's certainly interesting where we're going now with this artificial intelligence, Aaron.
Well, like I said, when it comes to art, you do whatever you want. I don't like when anybody says, well, you can't do that. Well, who are you to say that? But just like you said, when I see a photo of the Milky Way, I'm super impressed with that photographer because that's just like it. Even when you use Photo Pills, that app, you still have to go there at the time and figure it all out and do all that. And for someone, like you said, just to take a photo and then slap up the Milky Way there and then just say, look at this. Now I'm always going to wonder when I see that. So, like I said, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do because I don't like people telling me what to do when it comes to art. But it would be kind of cool to say, hey, guys, check this out. This is a cool composite of this image. And if you just said that and then people say, well, what do you mean composite? Oh, I added the Milky Way later. Then, okay, cool. So, yeah, it's just the Milky Way is the only thing that really bothered me because it takes a lot of effort to get that. Where it's a sky with blue clouds, that doesn't seem too hard to do. And like you said, if it's that specific image of a model shoot or something, but landscape, yeah, it's kind of weird. But that would be just like people are saying here, like skin retouching, like you have an auto button. I don't think that's an issue unless you're trying to say, hey, look how good I am at skin retouching, and you really didn't do it. But that's who talks like that when you're doing photos. So if there's a button to press to do an auto saturation, how far are we going to go with this? So I really don't care what people do, except when it's something that takes a lot of effort to get, and you're just saying, hey, look at this cool Milky Way I took and you didn't. That's just kind of weird. So
I always the problem is
do it if you want.
You're dealing with purists on one side, I suppose, that will be that you should never touch an image and it should always be like a photojournalistic experience of, You know,
do that if you
want.
But
I always argued the fact against that was that even Ansel Adam, when you're in the dark room, you used to use dodging and burning. Because I used to do that. You'd use your hands. You'd change the exposure in certain settings. You know, like you'd manipulate certain parts of the area to get more exposure than others. The dark room was still manipulating the image. You never, very rarely. I bet you Ansel Adams' images were never ever just put through the dark room as they are. They would have been dodging and burning done on those images for sure in the studio, in the dark room.
Yep.
It's no different in a lot of ways, but it's just sometimes, like I said, as long as you're not claiming that it's this one-off shot, that be honest and claim it's a composite, and remember it is art. And I suppose then, as long as you do that, you're okay. With things like skin... Oh, sorry, and I'll come back to you. With things like skin softening, I think some people definitely are pushing the skin softening too far, though. And now that seems to be now that it's become more popular now to back off on that now, I think. You know, and it's sort of... You do still want to make sure that you're seeing the pores and stuff like that. If you go too far on some of these automatic softwares...
the automatic
they can basically give like the plasticky skin, which I think looks terrible. That's why I like to do it myself. So when I'm doing that sort of stuff, I'll be doing that myself. But yeah, what were you going to say, Aaron? You were just saying something.
I don't do too many of the auto things myself, but who's for anybody to say to anybody what you do? I mean, that's just ridiculous. If you are, if you are putting yourself out there as a naturalist, or I don't know what you call it, a natural photographer, where you don't use any Photoshop at all, then that's 100% fine. But I don't think those people should attack people who love to manipulate stuff. I mean, people do it in movies and everything. I don't think you should go against people who do, color grade films or color grade their photos or anything. It's just, if you want to be a purist, be your purist, and that's cool. If I want to do my manipulation, then let me do that. I don't see why there's ever even a conflict there. Just do whatever you want. But if you are a purist, then hopefully some of those people aren't saying, hey, look at this shot, and they're not actually telling the truth now because they're manipulating it in some way. But I don't even know if it's much of an issue, except that Milky Way just kind of bothered me that they.
Well, it's also, remember that story we discussed recently where that Instagram, I can't remember the girl or guy, whatever, I think it was a girl, shot the same photo, but she put the same sky in every single shot. Like, you can come completely unstuck if you're not honest about it. And see, this is where you have to be careful, because if you're sort of putting something like that on Instagram and it's meant to be a capture of that moment and time, and then they're faking the sky. She got slammed by that many people because she'd used this fake sky every single time. This is why I'm saying you're better off to be honest about something in that regard and call it art, rather than saying it's a capture of a moment, which is what, like, she was trying to claim in Instagram, that she was in these beautiful locations and the sky was exactly the same every single time,
the same cloud. Now if you are doing journalism, that might be a whole different story. But I think people are getting too generic, like, oh, you can't use Photoshop, you need to be purist. No, you don't need to be nothing. Just if you want to be purist, go for it. And if you want to put like rainbows and sparkles, shooting stars and unicorns in your photo, then do it and have fun and enjoy it, and nobody should say you can't. So,
well, it's interesting because Flying High Low said in Korea, people love if you're looking like a porcelain doll. Some requested that I should edit it like that. That's true. Well, again, you've got to really sell to your marketplace, don't you?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
and do it if you want.
Sometimes I have brides, and what I'll do with them is I use frequency separation, and I save everything on layers in Photoshop. Now, sometimes some brides have been very, very conscious about how their skin looks. And if they're really conscious when they come in and buy prints, for instance, or for their wedding album, I'll get them back in and then I'll adjust the exposure of the frequency separation until they say they're happy with it.
That's a good idea.
So that's what I'll do, because sometimes some brides will say they want more and some brides will say they'll want a little bit less. So that's, one way of getting around that. But you've just got to make sure that you don't push it too far if there's no reason to push it. But you obviously have to sell your prints, and the nicer they look. I personally hate the when it goes really plasticky, though. I think it looks awful.
Yeah, I like to have some, the skin there and just get rid of things that aren't normally there, basically, and stuff like that. But I do a lot of skin retouching, but I don't go for sometimes I do on some of my photos. It just depends on the photo. If I'm going for that really just Sometimes I'll use like noise reduction to get rid of noise. Very rarely, but sometimes I'll just go for that like perfection photo, and then I'll do it, but very rarely. But I'm all for you do whatever you want.
It's right. It's all an artistic choice. This is the thing I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is your artistic choice about how far you push it. All right, well, that was an interesting discussion. So let's go on to the next one, because the next story, if you want to put that time in, Aaron, is weather sealing. So this is quite an interesting story. I think I'm going to move this over a touch, actually. Let me just move that a little bit.
We've talked a little bit about this before.
Yeah, we have. This was an interesting one that Aaron found, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because we were looking at, it's a very, very long article. I will put these down below so you can have a look at these articles. But there's a whole stack of things that are put in here where they discuss the Canon weather sealing. And I'll cross over to Aaron in a minute.
Cameras too.
Yeah, the newer cameras, yep. There's also talking about it, and this is what's interesting too. They show the weather sealing in here. So these images are all showing where it's done. Like the green is the high precision parts, and the red is the sealing materials. So you can sort of see where it's all sealed, and that's the Canon side of things. And they're also saying, like the ESR apparently is very, very well weather sealed. Nikon has also done the same thing, where they've showed how the weather sealing is working. And like I said, again, you could read this. It'll take a while to get through the whole thing.
Yeah,
and these are all their current cameras, like the D850 and everything else. The D5, you can also see where all the weather sealing is put in. Sony is an interesting one, though, because, and this is really a bit weird. It doesn't surprise me in one way, because Sony were lacking a little bit in the weather sealing side. But they've said, of all the manufacturers listed in this roundup, we have sad to say that Sony was the only one that refused to give us diagrams. Why, we are not exactly sure, but when we told them that they were the only ones not submitting, they replied, noted. To that end, Sony cameras have been pretty well weather sealed against the elements, but in our own tests, we've found them starting to break down sooner than other options from Fuji, Canon, Olympus, and Nikon. We decided to keep this statement in the article to show off our fairness towards every brand, and in full reinforcement of the photographer's editorial policy on transparency. Otherwise, someone was bound to say, where is Sony in all of this? So they had to leave Sony out of this article because they didn't show their weather sealing. Whereas Fujifilm, you can see here, have showed all theirs, where theirs is. And I think that was Panasonic also have amazing weather sealing as well. And they've showed that as well. But it's interesting that you had more of a look at this, Aaron. What did you think? Which were the better ones they were saying for weather sealing?
Yeah, the best ones in their test and looking at their diagrams in their actual test was Pentax was the first, Olympus was second, Leica was third, and then it was the Fuji X-T3, I think, was the one that they tested, and then Canon and Nikon, and then Sony. They said in their test, Canon did great and everything, but what they, through their test, was the top three, Pentax, Olympus, and Leica. Those were the top weather-sealed cameras. And yeah, sadly, Sony, I've heard so many, getting into Sony myself, I heard so many stories where people said it just barely rained and my phone went out and all that, and then you see all the issues they have, and then they don't give the diagrams, probably maybe because I don't know why. They don't know why either. But unfortunately, they're the least weather sealed. So if you really are going to go into harsh elements, I probably wouldn't get the Sony. Through all the discussion boards I've seen, through this article, and I probably wouldn't get a Sony if I'm out doing rainy type stuff. With that said, though, I live in Puerto Rico, and it literally rains all the time. It's so humid. The walls actually sweat. It's not quite a waterfall, but so it's very wet here. And I've been here 11 years now, and I've had many different camera manufacturers, and I had never had any of them fail. And I've been in the typical, sprinkle type rain, and I do my best to cover up the cameras on all of the cameras that I've had, and I've never had any issues with any of them. So if what you do is literally outside, doing a lot of stuff outside, then Sony might not be your best option. But for me, I've never had any issues with any of the cameras. Have you ever had any weather issues?
No, and this is the interesting thing about that I've used mine in quite bad weather before. Actually, when I went to New Zealand, I took my A9 and I was using it close to waterfalls and everything, and the camera was absolutely drenched. So I don't
A lot
think
of people have.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big a problem. But look, I mean, I can tell when I look at the cameras that even the new R4, it's not sealed as well as something like what the GH5 was that I used to use. That thing was like a tank, same as my D4S was like a tank, and weather sealing was incredible everywhere. The R4 has definitely had an improvement though, so they have improved the cameras, and they seem to be as each generation comes out. So it's a pity that they didn't release something for the R4. I'm not sure when this was out. Perhaps, I know it's saying 18th of April. So when was the R4? R4 might not have even been out then. I don't think it
not
was.
out
So
yet.
that could be why they haven't done it. So I know the R4 is much better weather sealed than what the previous cameras were, and I know the A9 was better than the others before that. So they are getting better and better as time goes on, and you'll probably find they fixed the battery sort of issue in these cameras. There's a real problem with where the battery is. They fixed that in the R4. They've put much more weather sealing around. There's the ceilings around the actual parts where you stick in your microphone adapter and your HDMI
nice.
have got better ceilings put on them in the R4. So Sony certainly have updated their game. So
That's
perhaps
good.
they may update something like this once that happens, once they get a new version of that. I know Gerald, who's got the R4, says, never had a weather sealing problem with Sony and the R4, and the A9 II have better weather sealing. Unfair to say, never get Sony. As a photojournalist, I've never had a fear of using Sony's outdoor at all. I suppose the thing is that they are improving. Aaron, when he said that, is only talking about what he's had up until that point, I suppose. And, I've always had the thought, it has been in the back of my mind, though, I'm a bit worried as compared to like when I had my GH5, that I wouldn't have worried if I had that in a storm. It would never, ever be a problem with rain. But I don't know, but it's just an interesting article. But it certainly is interesting how Sony never were the only ones not to give any diagrams, though. So that was a bit bizarre.
Yeah, but you have to also know, people have had problems with the Sony cameras in water, so saying that's not so unfair. And with all their testing, it's the least on the list. It's, if you're going out in weather, I wouldn't get a Sony camera if I'm going to be predominantly outside as my profession, like all the time. I would feel a little like uncomfortable doing it. With that said, like I said, none of my cameras ever had any issues here, including the Sony's. So weather sealing, I brought this whole story up because weather sealing to me isn't that big of a deal, just because I've never had an issue with any of even my inexpensive Panasonic cameras. I've just never had issues. So for me, I never looked at a camera and bought it because it had good weather sealing. Never. I've never looked at that like, ooh, that's a camera to get for me because it has weather sealing. If it had it, great. If it didn't, I don't care because none of my cameras failed. So I don't know if weather sealing is that important to me. Do you think it's important to you? I know you just said you felt a little...
No, it's not. Look, I've never had an issue, but it's
not a buying point.
Always been on my mind that if it's really, like for a wedding, for instance, if it was a torrential downpour, I would make sure I've got coverage on my Sony camera because I'm not that convinced that it's good enough to survive that sort of scenario. But like I said, when I'm not worried, like I had it near waterfalls and it was drenched and everything else, and I never had an issue. But there are definitely reports, if you look online, of people that have had issues with weather sealing on the Sony side of things. I just haven't seen it. I remember when they did that torture test, Aaron, where they used the hose, the water did get into the Sony. Now that was a ridiculous test in the fact that how much water they put in it. But the Sony was the worst coping camera that was there. I think the Nikon was then second worst. But then, like other cameras, I think it was the Canon or whatever, had no issue at all. So, and I'm sure if the Panasonic was there, that probably wouldn't have had an issue either. Some are definitely more sealed than what others are. And if you were using it in really bad weather, well, I suppose the R4 would be a better solution than what, say, using an A9, a current A9 would be, or an A7 III. So that's why Sony have improved it.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I mean, if you're really going to go out there, Pentax and Olympus, and what did I say?
Leica,
And
was it? Yeah.
Leica would probably be the ones to use since they're that good. But like I said, I've never had issues with any. I had Nikon, tons of Panasonic, Sony's. None of them ever had an issue. So for me, weather sealing's not a big deal because I don't sit there out. What do you say? Uh, Photography of animals. What do you call that? Oh my gosh.
Animal photography.
Anybody know? Not animal photography. What do you call that outside? Oh my
I don't
gosh, I
know.
can't even remember.
We've
Someone put it
gone
there.
blank.
People who stand out in the middle of the woods and take photos of animals would not be a choice for me to get the Sony just because it did have issues. But that's about
I'm
it.
just trying to see what Michael meant, but he said in here, he's taken it off. I couldn't understand what he was saying. It's interesting. Gerald said, top sports pros and wildlife shooters use Sony in extreme weather conditions. Check it out. That is the reality. But I suppose if you looked at it, Gerald, most of them out there would be using Nikon and Canon at this stage. Like I said, you've only got to... I do think Sony's weather sealing is nowhere near as bad as what people make it out to be, but I still think it probably is an issue in earlier cameras compared to what the competition had. And like I said, I can only talk about it from when I had the GH5. That was in another league as compared to what my Sonys have.
Same with the G9
the G9
and my XT3, my XH1. Those were like really amazing.
So the weather sealing was better.
Yeah,
the weather sealing was better, and it's interesting how Sony were the only ones that left that off there, and that's a bit weird. But in real life, yes, you probably never do have an issue with those cameras because I never have had water problems with my cameras. But like I said, it's always on my mind as compared to like when I shot with the GH5 where I'd walk out not even have to worry about it. So anyway, that's about where that
I
goes.
guess, the thing is like the weather sealing is always on my mind. But again, I don't care what camera I had, even the XT3 with its good weather sealing, I always try not to get them wet anyway. So it's like the weather sealing just never really, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't buy a camera for it, and I just would try to cover all my cameras because I'm not just going to, wave it around in a pouring storm, even if it's a Leica. So, yeah, not a big deal to me.
Gerald said the new A7R4 diagrams show the new weather seals. Yeah, and this was from April, Gerald, so that's probably probably why that hasn't been mentioned. So if this was upgraded now, Sony may have added those diagrams in. All right, so let's go to the next one, which is pros and cons of watermarking. So this is an interesting discussion because I saw this the other day. It might have even been in the photography videography school that someone mentioned about should you watermark your images. I personally don't watermark my images. I used to years ago, but now that I've realised how smart things like content-aware fill is, I just don't bother because you know what? If someone's going to steal your photo, it's going to take 2 seconds to get rid of that watermark off the file, and then they could still use it anyway. The other thing too is that even when you look, say if you look at this image here, remember that your eye is drawn to the widest part of an image. That's fact, that your eye is drawn to that. Now, when I look at this image, the watermark at the bottom grabs my attention more than looking at the actual image itself. So, in a way, you've distracted your audience from looking at your main composition because they're going to start to look at what the watermark actually is. And then sometimes you'll sort of see this. The only time I use watermarks is like when I'm doing my dance studio work. Because I upload so many images and they're going to pick them, the roughs have watermarks similar to this actually on them where there's watermarks all through it because I'm worried they're just going to copy them and share them on social media and they haven't even been edited. They're raw photos. So I put them in as this, and then when they choose their photo, I will take that off. But I certainly don't do watermarks on images at all. Like I said, if you're worried about this sort of thing here, putting your watermark there, that will take 2 seconds in Photoshop to get rid of. Again, if you're looking here, it distracts you. It takes your eye away from that main part of the building there and the bridge, and you just look down here at the name down on the right-hand side. Like on this image here, it just destroys the image. I mean, some people will put them in crazy places looking at it. Again, this just totally, to me, destroys the image. I think it, like I said, all I look at is the name. Now, you may think, well, Yes, I want to make sure that people know the photo is mine. And I can understand that from a context of, well, if they see your image, at least you have your logo, then they can get back to you. But I usually, when people share my work, I ask them to put my name as the copyright to Osler Images, so I know it's sort of shared from me. But I just don't use watermarking as that. And before I go over to Aaron, I'll just put this other page in too. 7 reasons not to use watermarking. It says watermarks do not protect you from privacy. And like I said, they can be simple to take off and things like that. Stock companies won't allow you to do it either. You don't need a watermark to appear professional. In fact, I think it looks more professional without one being on there, but that's just my personal opinion. Watermarks hurt your chances of getting published or featured. No one can read your watermark anyway, because some people do use scripty type things and you can't read them. They don't stand out. But the main one for me is, and this is what I believe too, it says watermarks ruin your composition. Just let me move this over. It says here that watermarks ruin your composition of your photo. And I think they do too, because I think it draws your eye away from your image. A watermark is not a signature, not like an artist where they sign down the bottom of the photo. And also, it's really hard to keep your logo up to date. That's 7 things that they say there. What do you think, Aaron? I mean, do you use watermarks?
I used to use them all the time. And for me, the way I was doing my work on an iPad and all that, it was kind of a problem. I had my own like watermark. Like I didn't just like type my thing out and have Lightroom just post it there. I'd have my own little like PNG type thing. And I used to put them on all my photos, thinking that, not that they're going to get stolen, because people can delete that. It's not going to stop them. And I've noticed people who don't know how to delete that would literally, like clients or whatever, they crop the photo. I mean, they wanted it that bad where they would just literally crop the photo. Now it looks like crap because they cropped it, and it's like, well, hello, but at least they can't see my watermark. That was their idea. And then my issue was when I would try to sort through all my files, photos. Years later, I would come up, because I wasn't really that great at it at first. I've only started like photography like 4 years ago. So when I was doing all this work, I would want to bring up a photo, and I don't have the original one without the watermark. I know that sounds silly, but I just got lost, and it took me a few years to figure out how to manage all that. So then I would have a photo with my watermark on it, and I couldn't find the one without the watermark, because that was a mess, right? So I said, I'm not going to do it. And then the other thing is the composition. I'm like so picky about my composition. I mean, to little things in the image, I'm just like small little things like, ooh, I'm going to go right here because I just had that feeling when I looked through the camera. And then when I would go to put my watermark on, like, oh, that don't look good there. Let me put it up here. And I'm trying to balance the composition now with my dumb watermark. And I'm just like, forget it. I'm not going to do watermarks no more. And the main thing was I wanted people to see my photos someday and go, ooh, let's read the watermark and contact that guy for his work. That never happened, and it never will. So I just said, forget that whole watermark thing. So now I just, if someone wanted to steal my work, I could show them the raw file and say, hey, this is my photo. But that never happens to me. If it did, I don't know if I care. Bottom line is, I'm not putting watermarks on nothing.
No, I'm the same. I'm just laughing here at Photomix answer. He's talking to Casper, and he said all of Casper's images have watermarks on them. Literally, cause the weather sealing on his A9 sucks.
That's a good one. I read that when David was talking.
And Michael said, I watermark everything, even other photographers' pictures. It's mine. I love it.
Oh, yeah, it's funny. I was trying not to laugh when you were talking because I didn't want you to be.
But you always know when I'm reading something funny, because as Aaron's talking, I'm usually smiling reading some of these comments.
I know, I saw those.
I agree with Aaron. Like, I've never had someone. I don't think I can ever remember someone contacting me from a watermark, an image on the web or whatever. I don't think others may have, but I've never had that when I used to watermark
I think that's a beginner's photographer's like dream, because it was my dream. Like, someone's going to see this amazing photo and look at my name and then research and Google me and try to figure out where I am. That never happens. No. I mean, I've never had it happen. It might happen sometime. You might have one of those images that go viral or something, and maybe one of those are one of those things, but Man, it just wasn't worth the headache for me to go through the extra step of putting it on there. Like I said, I would want to use a photo of mine, and I can't find the original without the watermark. Now I got it settled, but I don't do watermarks anyways. But yeah, I'm done.
I just think aesthetically, like I said, it definitely takes your eye away from the main part of the
Yeah, I
subject.
couldn't stand that.
This
And I
is
always
the
trying to
issue.
figure out where do I put it,
Yeah.
Where do I put it and I was
Yeah.
trying to balance it out, and I would put it in awkward ways to kind of fit it in that kind of look cool. Enough of that, right?
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we're going to talk about with that one. And the last story before we show our images, because this one is an interesting one. Now, I went out to I'll explain what's sort of here. I went out to a seminar just recently. It was last week actually, on Tuesday, with Yervant, and this is the second workshop that I've been out with Yervant to discuss. Well, he sort of went through his business. Yervant's fantastic in that regard because he always talks about how he runs his business. Yervant's in the top 10 wedding photographers in the world, and he's great at sharing. He's an older guy. He doesn't mind sharing now, and he likes to give things back to the industry. So there were 70 people that went to this seminar. And he discussed on that, talking about how he runs his business. And he was pushing the fact of, particularly from the print side of things, that, he tries to really push that side to get clients to buy prints and things like that. Now, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about, Aaron, and others in the live chat too about it, because it was really interesting. I have awful trouble trying to sell prints. And it's got harder and harder over probably the last 2 years. And perhaps it might be my selling techniques that I don't really... I have some ethical issues with it in some ways, because when my daughter got married, it was an expensive wedding. We paid a fortune for her wedding photographer. At the time, I think they've been married, I can't remember how long, but number of years. But at the time we paid, I think it was around about $15,000 for the photographer. And so it was an awful lot. But when she went to the photographer to get the prints, he sat her down in a room and he played this big slideshow and all that sort of stuff. And it was pressure, sales to buy prints. And she ended up spending $2,000 extra. And she came home to me and she cried. And at the time I was working at RMIT, and I threatened to get RMIT's lawyers. RMIT are one of the biggest universities here. I threatened to get RMIT's lawyers onto him, and if he didn't take that thing back. And he did, but eventually he went broke. But this is the problem with me. I have problems with now getting people in and sort of trying to push or force them to do these sort of things. And that's where it seems to be that print sales sell so much. So because I don't do that, I don't sell that many images. I sell wedding albums. Nearly every wedding that I do will have wedding albums, and that's incorporated into the price of my actual weddings. But I don't sell many prints anymore. And I wanted to discuss this with people that, is due to the fact that Instagram is so big now, all people are really interested about is that immediate sharing. They immediately want to share it on Facebook. They immediately want to share it on Instagram. And the print side of things doesn't seem to matter as much to clients anymore. But in a way, that's tragic, because there's nothing nicer than looking at a beautiful print. Not only that, but prints will last. If you get prints done properly, they'll last 100 years because they're archival. And this is another thing. So, you're handing down this heirloom to people and look at. I mean, I've got in here, Kerry's actually put it away. I've got big books of prints as well that I show people. I've got prints on the wall all over the place. How are you finding, Aaron? I mean, and then I'd love to know in the chat what people do to sell prints. Have you noticed a difference now with how people have gone with Instagram and everything else? Because I just think it seems to be that this instant, and that's why I showed that picture there where, you're using a mobile phone and capturing that moment, seems to be more about where people are going now than they are about having these prints. I mean, I haven't even got a printer that I print out my own work. I mean, I've thought about going out and buying a really good Canon printer or something else, but then I just don't know if I'd get the money back on it. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, as far as prints are concerned, yeah, I'd never push prints because it's like, I I mean, I was a salesperson for a cell phone company. Me and my wife both were. We're really good salespeople and all that. But I'm like you. I just don't feel like pushing something on people, whatever. But I think my main thing is people are so used to the digital realm where I don't think they understand that there actually is an option unless they don't see the photos or whatever. And you can see the album behind me. I did a video on this. When you do see prints of your work or of your wedding or whatever it is, it does look absolutely just so much better than looking at it on a device. Most people are looking at photos on their phone even, not even on a computer screen or anything like that, maybe an iPad at the largest. And when you see it in print, it does look amazing. So if you were just to show that to a client and say, hey, look, you can get your photos in print, that's pretty cool. So that doesn't take the ability to hurry up and put it on Facebook because nobody's going to see that book sitting on their shelf, but everybody can see their Facebook and Instagram. But they can have that beautiful album or prints on the wall or whatever at their house that they can look at. Now, I don't know too many houses that I go to that are just blank walls. I'm sure there's a lot out there, but most houses I go to, there's some type of print or artwork or something on the walls because you want to, dress up your walls. So I don't think prints are completely, I don't think digital completely took away prints unless everybody's walls would be bare. And I'm not talking about just prints of people, but of landscapes or horses or cars or whatever you're into. So I think there's still a need for print. I think there's still a want if you show your clients what it looks like. Because when I got that album in, I mean, I've printed things out in the past, but when I got that, I was like, wow, this just looks absolutely amazing. And I just love to look at it more than on an iPad or something. So I don't think it's dead. I think you just have to show your client, like, hey, do you want one of those? They're really cool, and you can put it on your shelf, but here's your other stuff for your social media. And once they see that, I think they'd get excited and probably want some prints done because it just looks that amazing. But as far as pushing it, like you said, your daughter, yeah, that's not I would be completely against that. I would just show them the album, say, look how amazing these look, and if they think it's amazing, they'll buy it. If they go, nah, I like, a small picture like this on my phone better than, or they don't have the money or whatever. So it's no big deal. But for me, I don't think it's dead, and I would never just push something on people that don't need it. Just show them and say, hey, this is really nice. And that's pretty much how I feel about prints. I do want to start printing out some of my work and putting it on my walls here. I was posting, just kind of leaning up some prints that I did back there. So for me, I wouldn't push it, and yeah, I think it's if you just show people how amazing they look in print because people don't see it no more, I think they might just buy it from you.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
I mean, like I said, when we were at this this workshop the other day, there was a Canon printer there. I think it was about $1,000. It was an A2 printer that produced gorgeous results. I think it had 10 inks cartridges or something like that. I mean, I can't remember. It might have even been more than that. So you got these beautiful, rich type colours and stuff, and I was tempted to buy one, and I came home to Kerry and said, I wouldn't mind to buy one, but then I thought about it and thought, well, the problem is I'm just not selling that many digitally. I don't know whether it's just that things are very tight at the moment and people don't want to spend anything extra. Like I said, their albums are already built in, so that side of it's done, but it's almost like getting blood out of a stone trying to get people to buy other things, and that's like I'm saying, like prints and everything else, which is a shame because I love seeing my work on the wall. I adore seeing these beautiful big prints that are on the wall. And I think there's nothing nicer than giving someone that type of thing, but it just doesn't seem to be happening that much now. That's why I'd love, even in the questions below, guys, people that are watching later, can you sort of discuss how you're going as your wedding businesses and if you're doing portraits and stuff, how you're going with selling prints?
Now, do you show them a physical album and say, hey, this is the album you're going to get in your package?
Yeah.
If you want, we can have also we can blow these up big and have on your wall, and you do all that, and they just don't go for it, huh?
No, just don't go for it. Like I said, I don't know if it's a thing at the moment with people being tight on money or whatever, but I did definitely used to sell way more prints. 2 years ago, I sold heaps more. Now they just don't seem to be interested in.
And you're doing the same.
Yep.
You're doing the same speech or pitch or whatever.
It's all the same. It's just that it's it really is, and that's why I wondered: is it Instagram and the Facebook sort of thing that's just stopping this from happening? That people are happy enough just to be looking at their images online now, or what? It's. I'm only talking from my perspective.
That might be it. They're just like. everybody puts photos online, so maybe they're just they feel good enough by just soaking their pupils with a photo on their iPads or whatever they just yeah, no, I can see it there. I'm fine. What I noticed a lot of times, and I don't know if it's where I live or whatever, because I only did photography here, but I don't see people. Well, you've talked about it before. What am I talking about? Where people don't really care about quality. Like, because you said you'd have a client show you a photo like, ooh, I want a photo like this, and it's amazing, and you look at it, it's like, or you see comments like, wow, it's just the most, and it's like really just crappy photo, So, is that something where there's more photographers in the game, so the quality, they're not expecting quality, so a nice quality print isn't something they care about? Yeah, it's kind of, I'm glad you brought it up because it's interesting. I don't have a lot of experience with people buying them and then not buying them, so
yeah. Well,
I'm interested too.
Mario said, I think it's hard to sell something where you yourself don't see the value. Well, I certainly never ever say that I don't see the value. I try and I really do say they're beautiful. I show them the images and things like that, and so it's not like I'm not seeing that there's good value. Gerald also said, I have a 24-inch wide Canon archival printer with 10 inks and made some great prints, but I found it was cheaper to have my wedding archival prints done at Adorama Pics.
Yeah, it's definitely cheaper to have it outsourced. I saw it's one of the larger YouTube channels, and I don't remember his name. He does landscape photography, and he did a video saying, is it cheaper to buy a nice printer, kind of maybe something like Gerald has, something like that, it sounds like it, I forget what it is. Is it cheaper to buy the ink and the special paper and all this stuff to print yourself, or is it cheaper just to outsource it? Like that beautiful album out there, End Photo.
Yeah.
I did a video on that. You can go check it and click on the links. It's cheaper just to have them do it and send it to you than to have that huge expensive printer with all that ink and then the papers and so if you're selling those to clients, maybe it's better, but if you're just printing out for yourself especially, it's cheaper. So I think it's just cheaper nowadays just to have it done outsourced. It's just, here's the photos, and you get the awesome photos, and then you give it to the client instead of printing and all that stuff. So
see, it's not only that; it's the other issues too. You have to then create ICC profiles and things like that, don't you? If you're printing yourself, everything has to be calibrated. Whereas I outsource. I mean, I just outsource mine, and I get them back a couple of days later, and it's all done. I don't have to worry about ICC profiles or anything else.
No.
But I have always had this. I do keep still thinking about it, though. I'd love to have like that printer like what Gerald mentioned there, and then have it here, and then say perhaps you could print one off straight after the wedding, have that waiting for them when they walked in, and that may give them the feeling of, well, I might want to buy some more, if they sort of see it like that, and give them that perhaps as a free gift or something like that when they come in.
That's why I was asking you to show them the photo album, like I would show a client, hey, look at this, we can actually get
I do show them the album, like I show them that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So I don't think buying an expensive printer and doing all that calibration stuff to print out a photo and then show them from a beautiful album photo saying I can blow that up to this, wouldn't that look great? To show them that, would they be like, oh, now I'm sold because now I see it bigger? I don't know if it would be a good investment at this point. I think it's still just outsource it. I definitely wouldn't buy my own. But as far as prints dying, you proved to yourself that they are. This
is the thing. I mean, like I said, is it just me? I mean, my business is going well. It's just that side of it. The print side of it just doesn't give me anything like what I used to get.
Well, I have more people ask about albums than they would prints for a wall. Yeah. So I think the album is cool because you got all your photos in one little thing that you can bring out. Say, hey, come sit next to me on the couch and let's flip through this. Or have just one photo on the wall. Maybe they're just not into it, but man, it does look nice when you have prints on the wall. It really does.
Well, Gerald says his printer costs $3,000 United States dollars, and the set of inks is $500. I mean, do you think, Gerald? I mean, do you think now it's worth doing that, or would you now just say you just outsource it now?
I think he says he outsources it.
Yeah, he did He did definitely say for the
Adorama Pics. Yeah,
Adorama Pics. So. John says I use the Canon Pro 100. I think that was the one.
If it's a hobby, now if it's like part of your hobby, then there's no the price is worth it. If you just like to print it out and you like to do all that stuff, then I think it'd be worth it. And you got your photo there. But if it's for like a business, I just don't know if that would. Well, apparently, David, you don't sell nearly enough to invest into all that. So
Yeah. Well,
I
think
outsource.
Simon said, why not show them 4 prints of the same image? I do. That's how I actually do it, Simon. I have multiple sizes that I show them with the same image on them, and then I show them how it actually comes up. I even have software that can beam it onto the wall. I use my big television that's behind me, and they can see the image in the size that it would print up as well, like that. So you can sort of see it. I've even got software that can show the print in their own lounge room. So software,
you proved it, man.
Yeah, so that software I take a photo of, they send me a photo of their room, that goes into the software, and then I use the software and it shows different images put up on their wall as, say, groups of images or one big photo and how a small image would look. So I've gone full out on doing it. The software that I use on that is ProSelect. So it's an expensive program. It's actually written by Australians, I believe. It's ProSelect, and that enables me to do that. And it has virtual rooms that you can put things in, and you can show them how it works. So, yeah, I do all those sort of things. But like I said, it's just died compared to everything else.
I think you at least proved it in your market, or you're just not I just don't think the clients maybe care in your market. Now, Kevin said that he printed out something for a client and they cried, and I completely agree with Kevin that prints are not dead. And when you do see a print, like I told you, that photo album, when I looked at it, I do a video of me opening it for the first time, and I was like, whoa, this is just like, that was like a real reaction of mine. And it really is amazing to see it. But, and David's showing those. So, it's in your market, I think you proved it. You did all the stuff you can do to show a client on how amazing this would look, and they're not buying them. So, yeah, maybe I keep showing them, and maybe you get a client buy one or two.
Well, the interesting thing. Oh, sorry, Aaron. I was going to say the interesting thing too is there's a famous, I can't remember her name. She's a young fashion photographer. She's English and now she lives in New York. But I saw the other day, I keep seeing her stuff coming up on Facebook talking about she's doing training now. But she said that she used to go and do all of her, when she talked to her agencies, like pitching her pictures, she no longer uses prints. And she says, because what I use now is I use my 12-inch iPad. And she said, the look on the iPad is that much nicer than what I will look at from a print side of things, that now I use an iPad to show my images to the clients rather than showing a print.
I don't know where she gets her prints, though, because go watch my video, that album, I mean, it looked better than on here because, well, if you're a photographer and you're on, you can pinch and zoom probably way past what you should be. So then you see, it doesn't look that great. But when you have a beautiful prints that are like this big, you can't zoom in. So you're really seeing it you're seeing it how it should have been composed. You're not pinching and zooming. So for me, that was way more stunning than the iPad. So, it depends on your camera, on the print process, and if you don't pinch and zoom, maybe it just looks as good. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of boggles my mind. So I'm glad you brought it up. And
I just wanted to sort of talk about it. So let us know anyway let us know in your comments, particularly down below. Now I wanted to show my image, so I was going to show that first, and then hopefully we can get to share Aaron's page. Hopefully it'll come up. Let me just see if I can bring this over.
So let's see, where am I?
So my image that I was going to show was just this one of Matisse. It's this girl that I photographed floating in the forest. I love these shots, and I'm going to do another series of these images coming up fairly soon. This is a composite shot. There's no other way you can do this. So it was a composite shot, so it's sort of like the fake skies, I suppose, in a way. She's actually on a stool, lying down with her legs pointing backwards. And then I've fluffed up the dress with multiple shots. So this probably was a combination of probably 8 or 9 shots. She was lying there in one shot. I took a background shot without anyone in it, so this has to be on a tripod. You take a background shot, which gives you your background shot. Then I can retouch the ladder out. Then I've got Kerry, she was there fluffing the dress up in all different positions. So then I'll add all the dresses up. So these dress coming through here was multiple shots all joined together to give this, because the dress actually was quite wasn't fluffy like this at all. So we just used bits of material and fluff the dress sort of down all over the place to give that shape like she's floating.
Love it.
But yeah, so that's really all this was. Someone went, oh my God, how did you do that? When I posted this on Instagram. I've got another one which I'll show you here that is a second one to this. Let me just bring that one in. You can see there that this is a similar type of shot. I'm going to post this one on Instagram today. So again, she's sitting on a stool, and then we've retouched the stool out of the way, and Kerry has been fluffing the dress up, and I've been taking shots at different periods here and then bringing them into Photoshop and joining them all together. So again, this probably would have been about 8 shots as well, with the dress being added. Like you'd fluff the dress up there, then she'd throw it again, and I just keep doing it to get multiple ones, and then I blend all these dresses together to give this really flowing look in their dresses. The hard part here is to make sure that, like, you know, she looks relaxed, like she's got the toes pointing down, the hands are relaxed, because if you don't look like you're really floating, it wouldn't look correct. So when you're looking at these, the important part is to have that real look of floating through the forest. So I'm going to do another one of these soon with some different models.
Love it.
Can't wait. So have you got one you wanted to share, Aaron? So hopefully it'll work.
Well, when I got here, I kind of forgot to do this, but let me see how to do this. Can you guys see it?
Now let me check here. Yes, I can. So I'll put that on. Yep.
Now, I don't know if I showed this before, but I wanted to show it because we're headed to New York at around the same time that I did this. I can't remember if we did this on the show before. It's one of my favorite shots of all time. And this was all natural light. And basically, I just want to say that this was with a Micro Four Thirds Panasonic G85. And what I needed to do with the Micro Four Thirds is I always wanted to use the longest lens that I kind of had on me, just so that you can get some juiciness out of it, so you can get some background blur and some compression and all that. And so what I did was I basically was zoomed in with the Panasonic 35 to 100 f2.8, so that's a 200 millimeter equivalent. And f5.6 is that come out to the right? I forget the math on the f2.8 if you want to do that times 2. 4.6 or something, I don't know. Anyways, so what I did, I zoomed all the way in and I laid on my stomach, so I'm quite far away from my wife here, and we just posed her like this and we took the shot. And I just want to basically show you how cool you can get shots with a Micro Four Thirds camera if you know what you're doing. You're shooting wide open and zooming in. And for me, this is enough background blur for me, really, when you think about it. And you can see how I used the line of the benches going all the way out and how that compression really made that. Now, I don't have the shot I did at, what was that, like 70 millimeter equivalent. It just did not even have the same effect here. And basically, that was just what I wanted to show you. New York, Central Park, Micro Four Thirds, 200 millimeter equivalent, and natural light. It looks pretty good, and I just basically in post process added a little bit more of the snow, and I lit up her face with like a I forget what you call that, like a vignette right on her face, a selective tool to brighten up her face. And yeah, so we're headed to New York. If you're watching this and you're going to be out there next week, let me know and we'll hook up. I'm done.
That was terrific. I love it. I don't think it'll be snowing when you're going to be there, though, will it, Aaron?
No, it won't be snowing. I wish it was. I love the snow.
I don't know whether you heard the ring come through, because I could hear it through my thing. I just had someone contact me for the phone, so sorry about that if that did come through.
No, I didn't hear it. That's
about the end of... people are saying there, Aaron, really enjoyed your photo. Beautiful. That's Kevin has said that.
You.
So...
Thanks, Kevin.
Now, if you can, guys, please, if you can, give us a thumbs up. It does help support the channel. And obviously, like I said, neither of us are sponsored, so that does really help. So we would love you to support the channel. Next week, it will be on Aaron's show. So stay tuned for that.
Next week, I won't be here, David.
Oh, you won't be there. Are you at LA, New York?
Yeah, we'll be somewhere. What we might be able to do is wherever I'm at, we'll see what my internet connection is, and maybe we could do the show from your side again.
Okay.
And we'll try it. We'll keep it up. So next week we'll definitely be on his channel. If it doesn't go through, I'm sure David will have a video of his own. So
no worries.
Cool.
Oh, that's no problem at all. Apart from that, it's been fantastic, guys. So if we don't see you next week, we'll certainly see you the week after. We'll try next week. We'll just have to see how it goes with Aaron
and our Facebook
being away.
group. David,
yeah,
tell
don't
them about
forget
our
to
Facebook group,
join the Photography Videography School. I'll stick the link in the description down below. So if you want to follow that, please do. It's a great positive site. So please join us. That's an extension of all we do here on YouTube. So please follow us there.
Also, Gerald, thank you.
Yep,
Real
thanks,
quick,
Gerald.
Hero was asking me, that was the Panasonic G85 with the Panasonic 35-100 f2.8 lens.
Yeah. We're still organising
Thanks,
these shoots. I've been talking to Gerald about some stuff that we'll be doing in Vegas when we're over in Vegas in February and stuff. So stay tuned for that. We're hopefully going to do some beautiful location shoots and things like that. So stay tuned as it gets a little bit closer. Now it's starting to get close now. It's less than 5 months away. So stay tuned for more information about the Vegas and LA trip that we're going to have coming up. There'll be lots of shooting opportunities and stuff like that we're going to do, and obviously a few coffees and stuff as well. So stay tuned for that. Apart from that, everyone, have a great week, Aaron, and everyone else,
David.
Have a great week as well.
Thanks for stopping by, guys. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next weekend.
Bye, everyone.
See ya. Bye.
Oh, thanks for the donation, Isle. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Eyal. He's my friend from Florida. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
I would say